Next on Ebert and Roeper,
Prince Charming.
Mike Myers in Shrek 2.
Jesus, he loves you.
Mandy Moore in Save.
I am filled with Christ's love.
And one of the biggest movies of all time is coming out on DVD. We'll show you the bells and whistles.
Do you want to be men?
Sir, yes, sir!
Do you want to be men?
Sir, yes, sir!
Val Kilmer and Rachel Lee Cook are Stateside, plus one of the best movies about the making of movies that I've ever seen. I'm Roger Ebert.
And I'm Richard Roeper. Our first movie is Shrek 2. We had an early review on last week's show. It opened on Wednesday to some big box office. This film is sure to gain an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. Yes, the characters are inspired creations, the animation is state-of-the-art, and the sight gags are great, but the Shrek movies wouldn't work if the actors weren't brilliant.
This is Fiona's choice.
Yes, but she was supposed to choose the prince we picked out for her. I mean, you expect me to give my blessings to this thing?
Fiona does, and she'll never forgive you if you don't.
John Cleese and Julie Andrews are inspired choices to play Fiona's parents. Another new character for Shrek 2 is Puss in Boots, voiced by Antonio Banderas.
Now, ye augur, pray for mercy from Puss in Boots. Ooh, I'll kill that cat.
One of the things I love about both Shrek movies is the attention to detail. You'd probably have to watch Shrek 2 3 or 4 times to catch all the nifty little jokes crammed into every corner of the screen. Check out all the puns and sight gags on Romeo Drive in the Beverly Hills-like kingdom of Far, Far Away.
Hey, ladies, let's say for a parade, huh? Yeah, you working that hat?
And we get all kinds of twisted takes on familiar storybook characters. There's something inspired about a fairy godmother who's more like a crime boss than a sweet little wish granter. And you won't believe what makes Pinocchio's nose grow. I think I'll just leave it at that. The original Shrek took a very creative route to a typical fairy tale ending, so in a way, this sequel makes a lot of sense. The Shrek series is all about turning those traditional tales upside down, and Shrek 2 is that rare sequel that's worthy of its predecessor. This is a great family film.
You know, I completely agree with you, and I like what you said about the voice talent, because in the earlier days of animated films, they just got anonymous actors to do the voices, and nobody paid much attention to who it was. But then, starting with those Disney pictures like Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Lion King, suddenly you began to get recognizable voices, and sometimes the animated characters looked a little bit like the actors who were voicing them. And it's become a whole new branch of show business. In this movie, Eddie Murphy's donkey is one of his best comic performances.
Well, you know, and Eddie Murphy's had such a string of bad films, live-action films recently. I don't know why he can't channel that great comic energy and delivery he has into other films, but I'm glad he's doing the donkey character here. You know, there's even a good performance from Larry King as the voice of the ugly stepsister, and I don't know if that coincides with what you're saying about how sometimes the voice people look like the characters they're playing or not.
What kind of thought process went through their minds when they said maybe Larry King could play the stepsister?
I don't know, but they maybe should have given her some nice suspenders.
Our next movie is Stateside, starring Jonathan Tucker as a rich kid who gets in a bad car crash and narrowly escapes jail when his father makes a deal for him to enlist in the Marines instead. Drill instructor Val Kilmer makes a man out of him during boot camp.
I want my boy to be trained hard. I want you to be trained hard. Not because you could die out there so much, but you might survive and fall in love with a foreign girl with an overbite.
Visiting a friend in a mental hospital, he meets a schizophrenic rock singer played by Rachel Lee Cook, and it is love at first sight.
Do that again.
His millionaire father, played by Joe Mantegna, is distant and angry most of the time and in no mood to humor his son's love for the schizophrenic.
What are you doing? Who is that spacey girl? Is she a mental patient?
She's an actress and a mental patient. And I'm asking you if she can stay here while I'm away.
Well, let me give it to you straight, Mark. No. And are you a Marine these days or what?
The movie's writer-director, Reverge Anselmo, says it's based on a true story, and that may be, but the story hasn't been formed into a very convincing movie. The dialogue sometimes sounds like free-form poetry. It's a little hard to understand, and the hero's love affair seems less like romance than like he's stubbornly trying to prove something to himself. At the end, when he returns home wounded from Lebanon, the conclusion feels incomplete and unconvincing. There are good performances all the way through, though, especially by the two leads, and Stateside doesn't lack a sense of urgency, but it isn't told in a way that lets us really feel involved. Thumbs down.
Well, thumbs up for me. You said the ending was incomplete and that made it unconvincing. I thought that made it convincing. It felt authentic. And I get what you're saying about how it kind of rambles around and sometimes doesn't feel like a realistic story, the kind of free-form verse that worked there.
The thing I didn't like about the ending is the fact that, not that it's incomplete, but that it doesn't look as if they filmed everything they wanted to film.
Oh, I think they did. I think they
really
did. And I really, really liked, Roger, the supporting performances. The two young leads are good, but Val Kilmer as the drill instructor,
good, yeah.
I think, is one of his best performances. And, you know, you get Ed Begley Jr.'s in there and Carrie Fisher, so there's a lot of veteran actors doing the character roles, and I think that
Begley
adds
and
some meat
Fisher
to the
don't do
story.
anything that's really that important. You know, I wish that they had kind of carved away the extra stuff and gotten into the main line of this relationship between this guy who's trying to learn responsibility and then applies it by becoming responsible to a person who really maybe doesn't need his attention.
Well,
and
I think,
that's an interesting situation.
But I think it addresses that in a good, strong way. Okay, our next movie is Saved, and this is an early review. This film confirms my belief that Mandy Moore isn't just a pop singer with an attractive screen presence, she's a real movie actress. Moore breaks out from the normal sweet girl role she's done with a juicy, evil performance as Hilary Faye, the self-righteous superstar at a Christian high school. She's like a teenage version of those middle-aged shrews you see campaigning against satanic rock music and free speech, things like that. Jenna Malone is Hilary Faye's former best friend, Mary.
So are you not going to accept our intervention here? Kidnapping? No. You are backsliding into the flames of hell.
You've become a magnet for sin. We've all witnessed it.
Sure. Veronica acting all pure. What about last spring break at the Promise Makers Rally, huh?
Macaulay Culkin has his best non-kid role as Hilary Faye's brother, who strikes up a romance with the school's lone Jewish student, Cassandra. And Susan Sarandon's daughter, Ava Amuri, is electric as Cassandra.
Isn't that Mary? What is she doing downtown?
There's only one reason Christian girls come down to the Planned Parenthood.
She's planning a pipe bomb?
Okay, 2 reasons.
And that is one of my favorite punchlines of the year. Saved also has terrific work from Mary Louise Parker as Mary's mother and Martin Donovan as Pastor Skip, the school's principal. His performance on the first day of school is a perfect satire of evangelical leaders who worship the awesomeness of their own charisma as much as they serve God, maybe more. Saved takes aim at some pretty broad targets, and the journey is occasionally bumpy, and I wish they could have found a more original conclusion than the big confrontation at the senior prom, though maybe that's a send-up as well. Director and co-writer Brian Danley has turned in an impressive debut work. This movie opens on select cities on May 25th. I liked it a lot. Thumbs up.
I did too. Thumbs up. You know, what's interesting is people are going to think this movie is an attack on Christianity, and what it is basically is an attack on intolerance.
Yes.
And it's in favor of tolerance. And the outsiders in the school include a gay, a kid in a wheelchair, the Jewish girl, and then the girl who gets pregnant.
Right.
And so they're, of course, utterly outside the pale of these kids who are so rigid in their self-congratulating Jesus worship and don't realize that Jesus was a much more embracing person. So this movie actually is a great rarity. It's a pointed satire in the form of a teenage comedy, and it takes on a target that is not a safe target.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It is absolutely not an attack on Christianity. It's all about people who cloak themselves in Christianity to excuse their bigotry. And, you know, stuff like a 25-foot-tall statue of Jesus with running shoes, that's just funny. And if you're strong in your beliefs, you shouldn't be offended by that. You should be offended by people who do things like that and think that that is their way of expressing
That's a very good point. Okay, later in the show, one of the most anticipated DVD releases in history with all of the extras. And when we come back, Mario Van Peebles stars in Baadasssss.
I'll use my own bread.
Oh, no, man. Nobody uses their own money to finance a movie, man. What if the movie's a bomb or you spend your money on it, you can't get a distributor?
I can raise $72,450. Make that $72,000. I haven't paid next month's rent, but that's enough to get the train rolling. I get the train rolling, investors are going to see we got something good, and they're going to jump on board.
Mario Van Peebles plays his own father, the legendary filmmaker Melvin Van Peebles, in Baadasssss, the spellbinding story of a turning point in movie history. Sweet Sweetback's Baadasssss song, made by Melvin in 1971, was the first film to show an outraged black man fighting back against white society. It was an enormous hit, and by pulling no punches, it created the blaxploitation market, although it was not an exploitation film. Mario's new film, Baadasssss, tells the story of how his father's film was made.
One of them Black Panthers? Boy, What are they holding you for?
Grand theft. They saw us with all that equipment. They figured it must have been stolen, so they impounded all of it.
Here the father, played by Mario, uses his 13-year-old son in a scene from early in Sweetback's life. The boy was raised in a brothel.
We got a movie to shoot.
Scene 2, opening sequence, young Sweetback loses his virginity.
That's Cleo Thomas as the young Mario. Baadasssss is not only good as itself, but it's one of the best movies I've ever seen about the making of a movie, and the only one whose director was an eyewitness when that original movie was being made. Melvin Van Peebles disguised his film as pornography to get around the unions. He bounced checks and intimidated his crew to keep them on the job. He was saved in a crisis by a check from Bill Cosby. But the movie almost didn't get released. It opened in one theater in Detroit, but the Black Panthers turned up for a second show, and Sweet Sweetback became a phenomenon. It and Baadasssss are both about the same thing, sidestepping the system to get the black experience on the screen. Baadasssss opens in New York and L.A. on May the 28th, and then it goes wider. Thumbs up.
Big thumbs up for me. This is one of the best movies of the year.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful.
You are so right. It is so knowing about low-budget filmmaking and all these things that had to go on. And the stuff with Bill Cosby is hilarious, of course, because it's true. And they mentioned the Black Panthers getting behind this film. And it's funny, and it's smart, and you have somebody who's playing his own father with scenes where he's got a version of himself. I mean, there's a lot of psychoanalysis going on here, and it is not some, oh, my father was a wonderful man. He was a wonderful man. He is a wonderful man, an interesting guy, but also deeply flawed, and the film doesn't pull away from any of that.
It doesn't. He's kind of frank about his father and about issues he had, and he has a character representing his mother who doesn't think Mario should be treated that way, and so there's a lot going on here, but there's another thing. Usually in movies that are about movies, it's all about action and the camera rolls and people are... A lot of this takes place in the editing room.
Yes.
And where the editor tries to walk out. The father says, you're not going to leave now, you're the only one who knows what all the cuts are. Or another scene where they're trying to get enough film to finish the movie. Or other scenes where he's dealing with craft people and with union people. I mean, it's about the nitty-gritty of filmmaking.
Yeah, and there's not one scene where this movie misfires. Okay, next movie. Twist takes Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, changes the venue from 19th century London to 21st century Toronto, switches the narrative from Oliver to the Artful Dodger, and turns the motley pickpockets into heroin-addicted pretty boy whores. I guess they figured it had already been turned into a musical. Nick Stahl from Terminator 3 plays Dodge, and Joshua Close is Oliver, a teenage runaway.
I don't know if you're interested, but do you need a place to crash tonight? Really? Yeah, man. Dodge. I'm Oliver.
Gary Farmer gives what I think is the film's best performance as Fagin, who's now an abusive pimp who runs the crummy boarding house where the boys shoot up dope and crash at the end of their shifts on the streets.
Listen.
Why aren't you out working?
Listen, I'm trying to tell you, I'm not...
You think I don't know when you're not out working? That's nothing compared to what you got coming from Bill.
Now, Dodge is supposed to be the ringleader of the group, but he's so drugged out and moody that he comes across as not terribly bright and charisma-free. It's hard to believe he could pull a kid off the streets and have him turning tricks just like that. Twist also suffers from an endless hunger to shock for the sake of shocking. A back-alley confrontation between Dodge and his brother is grotesque and pathetic. I'm sure that's what director Jacob Tierney was aiming for, but it springs so unnaturally from the preceding scenes that it carries zero emotional impact. Twist tries to be creative and profound, but I think it fails miserably.
I like this movie a lot, and I thought that it was very daring. It's not really based on Charles Dickens, except for some of the names. And it's not really about sex. What's interesting is it doesn't have any explicit sex. It's about the occupation of providing sex. It's about sex workers, and it's about homeless boys, and it's about how they don't really have any place to turn, and it's about rich people who take advantage of them. And so it has a real social conscience, and I think the acting is especially powerful in those scenes.
I think the acting is dead. I think it's limp, and I understand...
This is a movie about depressed, frightened people, so they're not going to be jumping around and happy all the time.
No, I'm not asking to jump around. I'm asking for them to convince me that they're really in these precarious situations where there's nowhere else to turn. And I didn't see that. I really didn't see that in this film. I didn't see that these characters, these kids, didn't have any place else to turn.
They didn't, though. Where else? What about this kid who the Oliver kid was picked up and brought into this environment? We find out where he came from, what his brother is like, what he was escaping from. He doesn't have any resources.
It just seems like everybody here is numb and they kind of sleepwalk through the paces.
They're not sleepwalking. They're tired, they're cold, they're poor, they're frightened, and they're doing something that makes them feel bad.
That's what I felt like when I was watching the movie, all of those things. Okay, my thumbs up video this week is The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. This was the crown jewel in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, winning 11 Academy Awards and becoming just the second film to gross more than $1 billion worldwide. As a standalone film, I think it's the best of the three, with memorable and epic battle scenes and emotionally powerful resolutions for more than a half dozen storylines.
You gave us no word.
I hold your oath fulfilled. Go. Be at peace.
The special features include 3 documentaries, The Quest Fulfilled, a director's vision, with interviews with director Peter Jackson and nearly all the major cast members.
As in any good story, just before it gets better, it gets a lot worse.
A filmmaker's journey, The Making of The Return of the King, which includes Jackson's original presentation when he was pitching the film.
And the first words out of his mouth were, "Aren't there 3 books? You should make 3."
And a National Geographic special on the movie. We also get some pretty neat character studies of Aragorn, Samwise, and the White Lady of Rohan, and a great feature on the creation of digital horse doubles. Even with all those Oscar wins, Return of the King didn't get a single nomination in the acting categories. I think Sean Astin, Viggo Mortensen, and Ian McKellen are among those who did award-worthy acting. Return of the Kings is in stores this Tuesday. I know the fans are going to gobble it up, but do remember this. A special extended version with new footage and lots more bells and whistles is coming out later this year.
I think people are getting a little tired of buying a DVD and finding out they have to buy another one. And, you know, this later one is going to have 4 discs in it, and you almost have to ask, how much do you really want to know about one movie?
Well, in the case of Lord of the Rings and the hardcore fans, and we know there are legions of them, I think they'll buy this one, they'll buy the next one, and then they'll buy the trilogy when it comes out on the accordion-sized set that will take up the next 6 years of your life.
To which I offer 3 words of advice: get a life. Coming up next, we'll have more movies new on DVD, including the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger's dramatic debut. Yes, that is the future governor of California as a bodybuilder who is also the lead fiddler in a bluegrass band. Arnold Schwarzenegger made his dramatic debut in a 1976 movie named Stay Hungry, which has been unavailable in any format for years, but is now on a new DVD. It was directed by Bob Rafelson about 5 years after his triumph with 5 Easy Pieces. It also starred Jeff Bridges and, in her first role as a grown-up, Sally Field. Bridges plays a real estate tycoon who starts out to buy a gym and then gets fascinated by bodybuilding, and Schwarzenegger is the Mr. Universe who introduces him to Sally Field, a country girl who doesn't fit in with his blue blood family.
Is my dress really all right?
Sweetheart, I told you, your dress just looks really unusual. You look lovely.
The DVD includes an introduction by Bob Rafelson, one of the most original and offbeat of American directors, and a commentary track by Rafelson, Jeff Bridges, and Sally Field.
Yeah, at this scene, I said to Arnold, look, why don't we use a prop weight?
And Arnold said no?
Arnold said, don't be ridiculous, Bob. This weighs nothing.
The movie is weirdly comic in the way it assembles these unlikely characters in a screwball plot, and it's surprisingly good. Among other things, it suggested that Schwarzenegger might be well advised to get out of bodybuilding and try his luck as an actor. He's pretty good.
Also new on video and well worth checking out, the best movie about hockey since Slapshot, It's Miracle, with Kurt Russell giving one of his best performances as U.S. Olympic coach Herb Brooks. There's a 2-disc commemorative edition of one of my favorite movies growing up, The Great Escape, and I still think Steve McQueen has a chance to make a getaway on that motorcycle. And the Academy Award-nominated documentary The Weather Underground, a fascinating look at the mostly privileged kid from the 60s who formed the radical Weather Underground movement.
We wanted to say no. What we're going to do is whatever we had to do to stop the violence in Vietnam.
And also, Roger, on DVD, you get Sweet Sweetback's Baadasssss song, the original movie. And I would say, for once, I think it's better to see Baadasssss, the film that's rolling out now, and then go back and see Sweet Sweetback.
It's raw and very daring. Yeah, you know, even now, 34 years later, it's a powerful, shocking, very surprising film. So, Sweet Sweetback's Baadasssss song, Stay Hungry, Miracle, and The Great Escape are available in stores right now. And The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and The Weather Underground will be available on DVD on Tuesday.
We'll be back to recap this week's show right after this.
Okay, recapping this week's movies, 2 thumbs up for Shrek 2. We split on Stateside. 2 thumbs up for Saved, opening May the 28th. 2 big thumbs up for Baadasssss, also opening May the 28th. And we had a split on Twist.
And we'll be back in a moment.
Visit our website at ebertandroper.tv or at movies.com.
Next week, from Troy to Van Helsing to Mean Girls, our special look at the big movies of the spring on Ebert and Roeper.
Remember, you can hear all our recent reviews at ebertandroper.tv or at movies.com and read us in print at suntimes.com. And until next week, the balcony is closed.
You know, Baadasssss just has so many neat visual tricks, but the performances, Joy Bryan, who's been in Antoine Fisher and a lot of other movies, is really good here as
Mario
the
Van
secretary.
Peebles is a good director. He made a great film called New Jack City, and this is another one.
That's right.
Curad Spray Bandage seals and protects wounds with a special touch. Convenient, flexible, invisible. Just spray and you're on your way. Curad, we help heal.
I get hot flashes, night sweats.
Try All Natural New Phase with more of the plant estrogens clinically shown to reduce menopausal symptoms. New Phase. Get more out of life.
The lowest prices of any national chain just got lower. Look for Click 6 web bargains at Motel6.com and save big when you book online.
Introducing Odor Eater's unique Zorbatex technology. It absorbs sweat and destroys foot odor on contact.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is brought to you by
Miracle Grow Moisture Control Potting Mix. It grows plants twice as big and takes the guesswork out of watering.